Roughly 10 miles from Boston sat a village called Lexington. Fewer than 800 people called it home. There was no fortress here, no famous landmark, nothing that marked it as historically significant. It was, by any measure, an ordinary farming town. A blacksmith's forge, scattered farmhouses, a meeting house, a green where cattle sometimes grazed. If you had passed through Lexington in early 1775, you likely wouldn't have remembered it at all. But geography does not care about fame. One road connected Boston to Concord, the town where colonial military supplies were being hidden, and that road ran directly through the center of Lexington. If British troops wanted to reach Concord quickly and by land, this was, for all practical purposes, their only route. Among the men who called Lexington home was Captain John Parker, a farmer, a veteran of the French and Indian War, a husband and father who had spent most of his adult life working the land, not planning battles. Parker had been elected to lead Lexington's local militia company, a loosely organized group of neighbors, not professional soldiers, who trained irregularly and hoped, more than anything, that they would never actually need to fight. In Boston, British General Thomas Gage had received clear instructions from London. The colonial resistance needed to be broken before it grew any further out of control. Gage's plan was straightforward on paper. Move a large detachment of troops out of Boston under cover of darkness. March to Concord. Seize or destroy the military stores hidden there. Arrest key resistance leaders if the opportunity presented itself. Then return to Boston before the surrounding countryside could organize a response. Speed and secrecy were everything. Without them, the mission could unravel entirely. But secrets, especially in a colony full of watchful eyes, rarely stay secret for long. Colonial observers in Boston had grown suspicious of unusual British activity in the days beforehand, and when roughly 700 British regulars began quietly assembling on the night of April 18, 1775, word reached colonial leaders quickly. Riders set out into the darkness to spread the alarm, among them Paul Revere and William Dawes, who took separate routes out of Boston. Historians generally credit this as a deliberate precaution, ensuring the warning would still get through even if one rider was stopped. Church bells rang. Messengers pounded on farmhouse doors. Militia companies across the Massachusetts countryside began waking, arming, and gathering. Every mile mattered now. Every minute mattered. Because if the alarm didn't reach Lexington in time, the British column might pass through completely unopposed, and Concord's military stores might be destroyed before anyone could stop it. Captain John Parker had heard rumors of a British march before. Colonial leaders had feared this moment for months. But on the night of April 18th, the rumors stopped being rumors. Parker didn't call for revenge. He didn't organize an ambush. He simply did what any local commander in his position might do. He called his neighbors together. Farmers set down their tools. The blacksmith left his forge cold. Shopkeepers closed their shutters. Roughly 70 men, ordinary tradesmen and landowners who had never expected to face a professional army, assembled in the pre-dawn darkness on Lexington's town green. They were not there because they believed they could defeat 700 British regulars in open battle. They knew better. British soldiers were better trained, better armed, and far more experienced in actual combat. If it came to a conventional fight, the outcome was not in doubt. They were there for a simpler reason, because they believed someone had to stand and be counted. Whatever happened next, Lexington would not simply let the British army pass through without so much as a witness. As the sky began to lighten, word reached the green. The British were close. Nearly 700 disciplined regulars, marching in formation, were approaching Lexington on the very road that ran straight through its center. Captain Parker instructed his men not to fire first. Whatever exact words he used that morning, accounts differ, and the popular version has been debated by historians for 2 centuries. His intent was clear. His militia would not start a war on Lexington Green, but they would not vanish into the countryside and let the British pass unchallenged either. They would simply stand. For a moment, on a quiet stretch of grass in a village most people had never heard of, 2 very different forces stood facing one another. One side represented the largest empire on earth, the other represented roughly 70 neighbors who had picked up their family muskets and walked out their front doors before sunrise. Neither side had marched here expecting a battle. And yet, within minutes, a single shot, fired by someone whose identity has never been confirmed, would echo far beyond this small Massachusetts town and change the direction of American history. One side is the largest empire on earth. The other is 70 neighbors who grabbed their hunting muskets before sunrise. Neither one came here to start a war. In the next 60 seconds, someone is going to fire, and to this day, historians still don't agree on who. That single shot doesn't just start a battle. It starts a chain reaction that ends, 8 years later, with a brand new nation. If you want to see what happens the moment that shot rings out, and how a ragtag militia humiliates the British Army on a hill outside Boston, that's part 2. Subscribe so you don't miss it.